Hello and welcome to Got Clutter, Get Organized, a Conversation. I'm excited because we have Elaine Glass and she is an author. Her book is Get Quiet. I can't wait to start that conversation, especially because Elaine, like from about July 4th until about that Sunday, I just decided, you know what? I'm not going to do anything. There's no reason for me to answer any emails, do anything. I didn't have anything pressing. So I was like, you know what? I just need to be still. So I am excited for you to be here today and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Janet. Super excited to be here with you today.
So before we start talking about just getting quiet and the importance of that in our lives, what made you are a master life coach and of course you're also an author of the book Get Quiet. So what led you to that journey of one, just a coach, but then also of becoming an author?
I didn't start out being a coach or an author. That took decades to become all that I have in terms of success today, outwardly, anyway. I started out in healthcare. So for over 20 years, I sat with, can you get this, 40,000 patients one on one as a dental hygienist. That was my life class. So when I got to coaching school, I thought, well, gosh, I have all this information about humanity. How can I organize all of this and then really serve people at the highest level? So that's where my humble beginnings began, with consistently writing because I had kept a diary since I was 16 years old. That's how I processed the world. And so the writing was always consistent, but what I really needed was to transform my own life because during that time, years ago, I was going through a very difficult divorce. I became a single mom virtually overnight, and I had to get my life together, and I had to get it together quickly for my kids. So my inspiration at the time was to be the healthiest mom, mind, body, and soul that I could possibly be. That started
Mm,
my journey.
mm. So in your book, Get Quiet. So I guess my question is what prevents us from getting to that place, but also, I guess, what is our need for really being in that space?
The need is that is our natural state. When we think about how we came into this world, it was quiet. It was quiet in our mother's womb. There was stillness. And the need is to get back to that state, the simplicity of stillness, to be able to listen. And what are we listening for and connecting to? The truth of who we are, which is a soul. We are souls having a human experience, but we're so focused on the body and the overthinking mind that we have totally lost track of connecting to what we truly are. And that is this life force, this soul that's animating the body, that's animating our minds to create and have an imagination. So, this is why we need to get quiet, to be able to connect to our true nature and how we came in to this world.
Hmm. So, Elaine, what do you think, I guess, prevents us from doing that? Is there anything in the hindrances? Is it, our time? Right before this interview, I was having a conversation with a friend. We've known each other for years. And we were both talking about how we're at a place in our life where we want to slow down. We did the corporate. And she said, I guess because of the way we were raised in that environment, we were like, okay, I got to work 40 plus hours. I got to do this. I got to do that. And we were both talking about how we're at a place now. We're like, I just want to slow down. I want to enjoy life, have fun, but I need to slow down.
This is the time, especially for women in midlife, it's the pause. It's the pause. And we call it menopause, but to me, when we're talking about soul care, we talk a lot about self-care out in the world, but I'm pointing to soul care. And what prevents us from taking care of our soul is the need to be this busy, busy, busy. That I'm not enough if I'm not busy, busy, busy all the time. The outside world will call me lazy. The outside world will call me, I'm not motivated. I'm not on purpose. The outside world is so noisy. That's what's preventing us from really having that stillness within, because we know ourselves best. The outside world does not know us. So it's a bit crazy to rely on what others are saying. And yet we sit there on an endless scroll on social, an endless, need to ask everybody around us for advice. And what we really need to do is get quiet, get still, and rely on our soul's advice. Now that's a new concept.
And it's interesting you say that, Elaine, because during my days of, I guess what some people would call lazy, I just call it quiet time. I began to hear and sense some things that I needed to move forward with, but also some things like, you don't have to do that anymore. And it's okay. It's okay. And I think for me, what I gained through that time was it's okay, Janet, that you don't have a full schedule.
Mm.
You're getting the work done. Things are moving forward, but and it took me a long time to get to that space that I no longer have to work an 8-hour day. And I think that was the big realization. It was like, Janet, you don't have to work 8 hours anymore. You can get what you can get done sometimes in 5. The other day I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute, I crossed everything off my list and it's like 3 hours later. And I had to keep talking to myself. It's okay, Janet. It's okay. So you're right. It's like the busy, busy, busy. And I do have friends who are constantly busy. And I'm like, slow down.
Well, and you brought up a great point, because after this pause, after just allowing and giving yourself permission to stop and pause and lie on the couch and relax if you don't need to be doing anything, because in rest is when we receive these soul messages. It's not in the busyness of everyday life. And so the method here is to pause and then to purge. And I loved how you said, like, let's clear out my schedule. Let's purge anything that's no longer serving me during my one precious day here that I'm living and for the rest of my life. Let's purge. Let's purge everything in our environment as well that's weighing heavy on us. So that's the next step, is to purge and say, I don't need to be running around like a chicken with my head cut off all of the time. What I noticed in the 40,000 patients that I sat with, Janet, was that people were sick.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what was causing poor health. Why were people on so many medications? Why were people's relationships, suffering? I wanted to know all of these answers. And when a coach of mine asked me, after sitting with all those people, what did you learn? What was the thing that you learned the most? And I said, I just want people to get quiet. And I
Mm.
needed to get quiet too. And so that has been the message, to sit in stillness and be with yourself and tune into your soul and the advice that it is longing to give you.
So, Elaine, and I hear you, and of course I understand you, and of course I got my spot right over there on the other side. But what about, I'm thinking about those people who are hearing you or see or watching, but it's something that's preventing them. What do you say to those people? Because it's not like they have to be busy, they have to be constant moving, but they really need to like just pause. Because I know a really good friend, she lost something that she knew was in the house. And in my opinion, it's like that's the sign when you need to pause, stop, get everything off of your schedule and maybe redo some things. Since is so important to you and you know it's in the house, maybe just redo some systems. But of course, they just kept forging ahead and just probably going through everything. But what kind of advice do you give for somebody who right now, they're probably thinking about the back to school and some people are probably just so perfectionistic that they probably already got their schedules for the holidays and all of these things going, but they need to pause. What do you tell them?
When a car is out of control, it's going to crash. When you don't have intention for your life is going to go off the rails. And so many of this busyness is like, let's throw spaghetti on the cupboard and see what sticks. This is not the way to live a purposeful life. We need purpose. We need to know the direction of the car. We need to stay steady and focused and present to where that car is driving us. And so the busyness is just this erratic way of trying to fill our lives with what we call is so-called purpose, but it's meaningless. And that's why we end up in midlife going, what did I just do for the last 20 years? There was no meaning in it. I don't even know how I got here. And so the soul is the actual key to the ignition. It's the light. It is the energy that turns that car on and animates us. So the car is our body, but the soul is what animates that car and takes us down that road to every place that we want to see and experience in this beautiful life of ours with intention. And so we pause, we purge, and then we get purpose in our life. And that's where your whole life changes. Because that's where you begin to see the magic of the universe and God and everything else that we can see working in our favor. When we are on purpose, when we do things with intention for the good of ourselves and our family and the world, oh boy, this is when in my life, I started having synchronicities. I was having people come into my life wanting to help me in ways that I couldn't even imagine before. So let's stop just being mindless about the things that we do and the things that we put in our home. And you see this all the time in your work. It's this clutter. It's this clutter of let's just get more. But our environment is a reflection of our lives, as you know, and it's a reflection of what's going on in our minds. And so it's so interesting. How can we clear out our minds and clear out our environments to create that calm and inner peace so that we can have clear direction in our life? And it's fascinating to me how the environment is just a direct reflection of the lives that we're living.
And you're so right. I was just listening to you, and I was thinking earlier today. I had a meeting, and it was only a couple blocks away. And after I left, people were like, "Oh, I'll, take you home because I walk. It's only 2 blocks." And I was like, "No, I want to walk." I said, "I need to walk." And as I walked, I ran into a friend, a neighbor, and we just kind of stopped and just talked and like reconnected. And it was like, that is why I like this community. Because people stop, they talk, they smile, you get to see the trees, you get to see the cute puppies go by. And you're right. And it's like if I had just decided, oh, yeah, you know what, I'll jump in the car with you, I would have missed all of that trying to get, back home. And I really didn't need to get back home that soon. I knew what time I had to be there because I had to talk to you, but I still had that time. So you're right. Sometimes in just the pausing, you just get to experience those things. You get to reconnect. You get to enjoy life the way it is. And you're right. We do consume a lot of things. And I tell people 80% of the stuff we keep, we never really reference again. And we wear 20% of our clothes 80% of the time.
Mm.
So you're right. We need to get quiet. So, Elaine, in all that you do, oh, I'm sorry, did you want to say something else?
Well, I wanted to point to something that I think when you do get quiet, and this is just my soul hearing you and listening to you tell me that story about your neighbor. You don't really know what urged you to walk. Sometimes we just don't know why we do things, but we just are carried. What is carrying us? What is
Yeah.
making us choose walking versus driving? It is your intuition. It is what every woman's superpower is, but we are so disconnected because of the clutter, because of the noise of the world, because of the way that we're living our lives, that you just made an amazing decision to follow that intuition. I'm sure it was a split-second decision. You didn't put too much thought into it. You were just, no, I'm going to walk. And that then allowed you to have this beautiful soul-to-soul connection. Those are the little things that make up the most beautiful parts of our lives.
Mhm.
We're waiting for the big bang. We're waiting for the big fireworks of our life to happen. But it's just in those small moments that really make life special.
Yeah, and you are so right. It was like I just decided, no, no, it's beautiful. It's not 100. It doesn't feel like it's 100 outside. I can feel a breeze. I'm gonna walk. It's only 2 blocks. I've got my sneakers on. I'm gonna walk. So you're right. You're right. But what I wanted to ask you, Elaine, and I ask this question to all my guests, is how do you stay organized, whether it's your time or your life? Because I know, you know, you're a coach, you're an author, you got family, you got community, so many other things probably on your schedule. So how do you manage to stay organized?
Well, first, I am awakened and conscious to what being organized gives me. And we know, even just with science, that it increases our dopamine. It increases the way that we sleep and the efficiency of our sleep. It decreases stress and anxiety. It increases our mood. And so, just by me knowing this, it makes me want to be organized. And so, what I feel organization is for me is just being present and aware. That's how organization starts and ends in my world. Just like you were talking about your schedule. I look at my schedule for the week, and the first thing I say to myself, well, first I get present to the energy that I want to output. And I say, what can I take off of my schedule? That's the very first thing I say to stay organized. Because again, I don't want to be that car just off the racetrack going a million miles an hour, not knowing where I'm going. So it's being present, it's being intentional with what I do every day. And that's what keeps me organized.
Mm, I love that. What can I take off? I'm going to start looking at my schedule differently. I am. So, how can people connect with you? They can purchase your book or either work with you as a master life coach.
Yes, they can reach me at elaineglass.com, or they can get the book Get Quiet at getquiet.com or anywhere that they buy their books.
And of course, those of you watching and listening know I will have all of Elaine's links in the show page notes so you can connect with her directly. Elaine, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate you.